Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers, and today I have a special guest, Jodie Solberg. Welcome, Jodie.
Thanks so much, Michelle, for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to get to know you and to know more about what you do, because only in our sneak little preview before we hit record, I'm already very intrigued. But first, let's set an intention. My intention today, honestly, is to learn as much as I can about you and what you do and how you help people. And I think that might be the key piece right there. How do you help people?
Wonderful.
So you want to start there? No pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. We can start there. So, I'm a certified master hypnotherapist. I have 25 years of experience in mental and behavioral health and as a hypnotherapist. And I'm really focused on helping people with things like trauma and anxiety and breaking generational cycles. So, that is a huge piece. And for me, it's all about helping them reconnect with themselves, their true selves, embracing that, getting to know how they work best and being able to flow with that versus forcing against it. I feel like so often we're very disconnected from who we truly are and we get lost in the roles and responsibilities and all of the things that we're doing in life. And we lose touch of being and our intuition and our inner wisdom. And that causes a lot of issues and a lot of disconnection, but also discontent in our lives. And so I help primarily women and their families to be able to heal and to be able to break those cycles and patterns that are no longer serving and supporting them. And so I do that through things like hypnotherapy, through somatic embodiment and regulation strategies, through really having that deep connection and fostering more secure attachments and helping them to build confidence and self-esteem and getting their subconscious on board with the conscious goals that they're setting because often there's inner conflict going on there. So I help them resolve that and not just figure out what they don't want in life, but figure out what they do want and move towards that.
Oh my gosh, all of my regular listeners and all of my students and clients are going, well, we understand why Michelle is excited to talk to you because you're speaking my language.
I'm so happy. I love that. I know you and I, like you said, we started getting lost in conversation even before we hit record, just of getting to know each other. And we're getting so excited about some of these topics that I know you and I are both so passionate about.
Yeah. Do you use them like, does hypnotherapy and somatics, do you use them like together at the same time
Yeah,
in the same, yeah, that's beautiful. Can you say more about
absolutely.
somatics? Because I'm not sure everybody knows, well, both, but somatics is where I want to start if that's okay. Not sure
Yeah.
everybody knows what that is.
Yeah. So most people don't realize, I think, that emotions are actually physiological responses in our body to thoughts, to words, to everything that we're experiencing. And then we put words to it and we call it a name of an emotion. And so, how do you know if you're nervous, if you're scared, if you're excited about something? Right? You might notice your heart rate changes, your breathing changes, you get, and if sweaty or shaky or whatever it is, if it's on one side or the other, you get butterflies, right, in your stomach. And so, what we're talking about with somatics is it's all about your nervous system. And your nervous system is how we know what's going on, right? So we can tell what's happening. Our nervous system's constantly scanning for threats. It's always looking for what's going on around me. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Is there something scary? Am I going into something that makes me uncomfortable? Or am I relaxed? Am I good? Is everything happy? Right? So it's always trying to figure out what's going on. And then you have those reactions in your body, and we call them our emotions. And so with somatics and somatic regulation strategies and techniques, what we're doing is helping you to regulate your nervous system because as humans, unfortunately, there's a downside to all this logical thinking and all of these complex thought processes that we have. And it's that we overthink things and that we can anticipate fear or discomfort or anxiety or stress and things like that. If you're a bunny in my backyard, and there's a predator coming at you, it's pretty straightforward, right? Um, bunnies don't fight much, so they're going to flight or freeze. They're going to run back in their little burrow, and they're all scared and they're all amped up, and then they go in their burrow and they're like, okay, I'm safe, and they shake it off, and then they're over it and it's done and they move on with their lives, right? But what happens with people is that we just think things in our heads and we get ourselves all worked up, and it could be a perceived threat. Doesn't have to be a physical threat, doesn't have to be a lion, tiger, bear, or car coming at you. It could be something that's just outside your comfort zone, or something that you want to do that's a goal, but your subconscious and your nervous system are like, oh, that doesn't feel good, I don't know about that. And it holds us back, and we can get stuck. We can get stuck in emotions. We can get stuck in those feelings if we're scared, or there's trauma, or we're uncomfortable, or whatever it is. If it's a negative emotion, humans overthink things a lot, and we'll just think, well, I don't have time to deal with that right now. I don't want to deal with that right now. And we stuff it and we hold it in our bodies. And so, what the somatic techniques do, so it helps us to process and release all of those stuck emotions. If somebody tells me, so Michelle, if you told me a really funny joke and I started laughing so hard my cheeks hurt, right? It would be 30 seconds, a minute, maybe max, right? We're not laughing for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years. But negative emotions as humans, we bottle up a lot of times and we don't allow them to pass. It should be like a wave. We should feel it and then it should pass on. But we
And
bottle it
then it's
up.
done,
Yeah. And then,
right?
and then it's
Like
done.
feel
It's
it and
over
then it's
with.
done.
We're
Like the
on to the
rabbit. Then
next.
it's like we're
Yeah,
moving on. Yeah.
exactly. You laugh super hard and you're like, okay, next emotion. Let's move
Yeah.
on here, right? Negatives, we tend as humans to stick them into spots. And so that's where you'll find people who, when they're stressed out, their shoulders get super tight, or their neck, or their jaw, or they feel it in their gut or their chest. So everybody can relate to that, right? Of like, where do you feel it when you're super stressed out or when something's happening? Well, we keep stuffing things in there and holding that in our bodies, and it doesn't have anywhere to go because we are not like the bunny. We won't just shake it off, literally, right? Because animals will do that. They'll just shiver, they'll shake, and then they're like, okay, I'm good. I'm safe now. Let's move forward. And so I help people move forward by getting rid of all of that stuck emotion and energy in their bodies, and then help them to kind of repattern and reprogram their subconscious minds to not get that stuck again, so that the
Mhm.
next time that it happens, whatever it is, because life's always happening, then we're dealing with it in the moment. We can process, release, and move on. We're not back in that same place where we're sticking those emotions into our bodies and bottling them up for literally sometimes decades.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest things I learned in my Thai massage training. My master over in Thailand, he would, I mean, I don't know if he used this exact phrase, but what I learned from his is we put our issues in our tissues, like our emotional
Yep.
issues. Like they go, that's where they go. And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't move them, they get stuck there and they cause dukkha, they cause pain. And
Yep.
so it's like, it's amazing. I don't know. I had so much physical and visual proof of that in my Thai massage practice of like, oh, their hip is tight. Now they're crying on the mat. What is happening? Except that I knew what was happening because of my training,
Yeah.
it's that somatics. It's like we hang on to stuff we don't even realize, and if you've never heard of that or don't know it, the client can be confused or even afraid. It's like, so having some capacity to help them understand what's happening and that it's a positive thing, it
Mhm.
can be.
And yeah, that their body just needs to release that. And whether that's in the form of tears, or it is in the form of shaking, or it's in the form
Sometimes
of
it's laughter.
laughter. Yeah, exactly. Laughter, yawning, needing to stretch. I mean, however you need to move that, so things like yoga and massage, right? Really great, gentle ways to move some of those things out. There's a lot that we can do to help release those things. But like you said, most people don't realize that they're so bottled up. And
Yeah.
so on the hypnotherapy side. So, what we do with that is help people literally learn how to relax. I always say that. I teach people how to relax intentionally for a living because often we are just going through life, go, 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 do, do, do. We're never just stopping to breathe and be and relax intentionally. And that's really all that hypnosis is it's relaxing with intention and purpose. So we're intentionally stopping, slowing things down. We're literally slowing our brain waves down, slowing our bodies down, but your mind is still active and aware. We can actually have more, it's heightened focus and awareness. We can be more in control and more intentional about our thoughts and our feelings and what's happening because your thoughts are coming from these underlying beliefs. And that causes that physiological response, those emotions and behaviors and habits internally and externally in our bodies. And so we can really get to the root cause of what's happening. There's only 5 to 10% of our awareness that's in our conscious. So we're going to be able to, plan, make goals, organize, analyze, all of those things from our conscious mind. But it's really your subconscious where all of those memories, all of the experiences, all of those emotions, and all of your bodily processes are controlled. And so we need to be able to get under the surface to see what's influencing us, what's causing us to feel stuck, or what are our bodies trying to protect us from? Because that's what our nervous system's designed for, right? Is trying to protect us from those dangers, real or perceived. It's like, what are we holding ourselves back from under the false impression that maybe we're protecting ourselves, but we're really keeping ourselves from doing the things that we want to do in life? Because often people come to me and they're really frustrated and upset and feeling stuck or feeling like they've tried all the things, but they've hit a plateau or they've hit a wall and they can only get so far, but they can't figure out what's stopping them from doing the things they want, from reaching their goals and following through with those plans. And it's those subconscious blocks and barriers that when we can calm that conscious critical mind down and relax, we can tap into, okay, what's the root of this? And then we can heal that and replace it with something that's going to serve and support them better. So that's really what the hypnotherapy side does. And so I do them in tandem, like you were saying. I will do somatic work in that more relaxed state with people. I'll do somatic work to help them get into the relaxed state. So there's a lot of techniques that I teach my clients to relax, to release, to check in with themselves and be able to release throughout the day. And then we're retraining ourselves, we're rewiring our brains really to be able to operate in a new way to where we're not just going back into that same pattern of stuffing our emotions over and over and over again. When you actually deal with it, it actually can be freeing because I think of it like weeds in your yard, right? So you have the weeds that pop up and then you mow them down, and then the weeds keep popping up and you mow them down. Well, if you actually get out there and pull it out by the roots, then we can actually even go a step further. We can put some nice, new, more fertile soil in that area and plant something much nicer than that weed. That's what we're doing, but just on the subconscious level, that mental and emotional level, versus just thinking that, well, there's nothing I can do about it. That's just the way it is.
I love that you explained it that in depth because there was a point in there. Because sometimes when we say things like, well, I teach you how to relax and sit and calm, so many people are like, yeah, I don't do that. I can't sit and calm because then my brain gets too busy and my brain isn't nice. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I love that everything that you just said is like, yeah, no, no, that's the point. Like, I teach you how to do it in a way that is actually helpful and comfortable versus painful and continuing in the same loop and swirl that you're in that's keeping you in the fight, flight, freeze font, right? Like in that state.
Mhm.
So, and the fact that the two can be blended together is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
What?
absolutely. And I do customize for people too. I think that's
Oh
important
yeah, you
is
have
that
to.
it's not one size fits all, right?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
like,
Never
oh gosh.
works for you. Yeah, never. And sometimes people try to do that, right? We try to put ourselves in someone else's box of like, well, this is how I'm supposed to do it, or how somebody else said I should relax or meditate or whatever it is. And then they feel like they're doing it wrong or they
Yeah,
can't do it. And so, yeah, it is really important to really customize and tailor these experiences for the individual, again, for how their brain and their body works and how they work best. Because if you're trying to do things someone else's way, it's never quite going to be the right fit for you.
right. I love that. So, I mean, yeah, you're saying the same, you get to the same place in different ways. You have different tools
Mhm.
than I have, but it's like what I'm hearing you say is you introduce them to their authentic self. You introduce them to who
Yeah.
they are, and in doing that, to get there, you have to first see where they are now. Like,
Mhm.
and then figure out what that looks like and what that might need and how it might need to be held or guided or nurtured so that it can soften, I guess is the word I keep coming to is, a softening so that you can sit and actually listen from a state that isn't frazzled or anxiety ridden or worry filled or doubt filled or pick your thing, right?
Mhm.
I'm super curious as to what led you to this kind of work if you're open to sharing that. Like
Oh,
what got you
yeah.
here? How'd you get here?
That starts at a very young age. I kind of always knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was one of those people where it was just a natural fit for me. I was highly empathic as a child. I was one of those kids who my mom always used to say that when another child or an animal or anyone got hurt, I literally cried like it was happening to me because when I was little, it felt like it was happening to me. And, adults and people would just like come up to me and start talking to me. And I still have to be careful about that. If I don't put my little shields around myself, people will come up to me in the store and start telling me their life stories. So it was one of those things that I just always was naturally attuned to that. And I remember when it became really clear as far as what I wanted to do in high school, there was a really tragic death of one of my classmates. And I remember they were bringing everybody into like an auditorium and they had people that were coming in and counseling and helping. And my teachers were seeing that a lot of my fellow students and people were coming to me. And so they asked me to be a peer counselor because they saw that I just had that natural affinity for that and for helping people. And so that's kind of how it got started a little bit. And then one of my aunts who I'm really close to, I have a whole family full of nurses on my dad's side of my family. And one of my aunts was a social worker. And so I got to see what she was doing that I was really close with. And I knew I wanted to do that, but I knew that I wanted to do it at a different level. And so I, straight out of high school, knew that I wanted to go into psychology. And so I actually ended up focusing on both social and clinical psychology because I wanted to be able to help people as individuals. But I've always believed that we're whole people. We're not just a business in a bubble or our health in a bubble or our relationships in a bubble. We're whole people. And so I wanted to focus also on how we interacted with others. And one of the things that I was always very intuitively aware of growing up was I could tell without people telling me the types of trauma that they had been through. And that was something that I always felt really called to help people with. And I was raised by a mom who had a very abusive, traumatic background and upbringing. And I just always felt like I wanted to help people in that way. And so the very beginning of my career, my first internships were working with families that were going through crisis and abuse. And I was working with the parents on that side and doing parenting, like coaching and training programs and things like that. But I was also working with the children as well. And with, pregnant teens or kids who've been dealing with abuse and custody issues and all of these things. And so that was where my heart was at first, to really help people in that way. And over the years, I had a lot of experience with people in all the ages and stages, from working with 3 and 4 year olds to teenagers to adults who were dealing with alcohol and drug addictions, the effects of all of that trauma. And a lot of it goes back to that early childhood and just all of our formative years, when we are um, wired and programmed with all of our experiences and the things from, you know, kind of womb on, everything that we go through as human beings. And when I was really looking at that work that I was doing, I wanted to work with the people who were ready and wanted to be there, because I did do a lot on the therapy side early in my career with court appointed clients. But I also started coaching in grad school. It's really interesting because I needed something flexible, because basically I was paying to work full time and go to school full time.
Yeah.
And I had like 6 figures in student loans accruing, right? And I thought, how can I offset the interest over here that keeps accruing every time I breathe in and out? I could feel the heaviness of that and still help people. And so I actually started coaching women in business, entrepreneurs, and helping people with my psychology skills in that area. And I ran those two sides of my career parallel for a long time, until I got really burnt out doing all the things myself. And I realized how passionate I was and how much I loved working with women specifically. And the ones who, again, had that level of awareness where they knew the work that they wanted to do. They knew the things that were getting in the way and they wanted to do it. They just weren't sure how. And that's what I was finding with all of my coaching clients, is that they had lives, right? They just didn't have businesses on their own. They had all of these things with their relationships and their childhood stuff and their trauma and everything that was happening at home that was affecting their businesses. And they get so upset and frustrated of, how come I can't figure out how to get myself to do the things I know I need to do to be successful and reach my goals. But they had those subconscious blocks and barriers that we were talking about, those unhealed things, or there's emotions and the energy and the trauma that was stuck in their bodies. And that kept getting in their way. And so that's who I started to focus on working with. And that's when I created my private practice, Psyched Up Success, putting my psychology in with the success. And it really just was an evolution of everything that I felt called to do from such a young age. Of, I want to work with the people who are coming to me and saying, can you help me with this? And it's been such a beautiful journey ever since, because of my background working with families as well. So many women would, go through this process with me and work with me. And they'd say, you helped me so much. Now, can you help me help my kids? I want to break these generational cycles. I don't want to repeat this with them. I know what I don't want to do. Can you help me with what to do? And so I started really diving deeper and almost coming full circle, back to the beginning in a way, but in this new way where I felt like I could really make this huge difference. And, instead of working with a 3 or 4 year old that was dealing with trauma and anxiety, because that was happening and it's heartbreaking, and then also dealing with the 73-year-old who's still dealing with that trauma and anxiety and attachment issues from their whole lives, right? How amazing is it to be able to help prevent that for that next generation? And so that's really where this latest evolution has taken me, is how can I help people in a way that it creates that ripple effect to where they can pass those tools and resources on to their kids, so that 30, 40 years from now, they don't have to come to see somebody like me to deal with their childhood traumas and all of their patterns that kept getting perpetuated, that have been going on for generations in their family. So it's been a beautiful evolution, but it literally started when I was that little 4 year old who, was crying because somebody else got hurt on the playground. That I just was always that person who wanted to help care for others. But I've just learned how to place some energetic boundaries around it, definitely now, and to help myself first and to take care of myself first so I can take care of others at my best. And so I've just honed those skills over all of these years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great. I love everything you're saying. I love the intention with it. I love the awareness around it. I love the experience. And I love the authenticity. So I'm wondering if you can tell me what that looks like today. Like, how does your practice, like, how do you offer actually, I should ask you, where are you located?
Oh, good question. So, I'm in the US. I'm in Washington State. So I'm kind of halfway between Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. So I'm in the mountains, which is lovely. It's just a beautiful space, keeps me connected and grounded with nature. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. And I grew up in a very similar natural space like this here in the Northwest. And so love that, but I do work virtually. So I work virtually with people from all over the world, and that's one of my favorite things. That was a big piece when I founded Psyched Up Success. It was back in 2019, so about 6 years ago. It was really about a year before that that I knew that this was what I wanted to do. Again, I had gotten really burnt out and stressed out, just doing all the things and piling all the things on. I was caregiving and I was trying to heal my own body as well. And it just had a lot happening personally and way too much going on professionally at that point. I was really successful in both those tracks with my coaching and the therapy side, but it was a lot and it was getting a little too heavy. And I wasn't really truly taking care of myself first, which is where I work best. And so that is how I shifted. And I actually ended up moving in that year. One of the things that I did in order to found my business the way it is now, it is when I actually moved to the mountains. So where I live now is about an hour and a half from where I used to live, which was just like right outside of downtown Seattle, right in the middle of the city, a little suburb outside of Seattle, and a lot of stress and a lot of kind of hectic energy. And so now I get to live in a place that's peaceful with beautiful views. And that goes a long way for me personally to take care of myself so that, I really can have a great business and a life and really work most effectively with my clients too.
Beautiful. So you said you work virtually.
I do. Yeah.
Where do people find you?
So, a few different places. So, people find me. I have my website, so psychedupsuccess.com. A lot of times people just find me there. Social media. So, I am on social media, but I get a lot of referrals. So, I am listed, for example, locally on different therapy websites too. So, some people will find me there and resonate with what I'm sharing. But yeah, a lot of referrals from other like colleagues and professionals, clients, and doing things like this. Just really sharing about the kind of work that I do because it is a unique blend and mix. And like you said, you and I do similar things in a way, right? Help people get to similar places, but it's very complementary to each other.
Hmm.
And so a lot of practitioners, I love really teaming up with other helping professionals because I believe in having a whole care team, and how important that is. And so that's probably my favorite way to find people is when you and I are talking about these types of topics and somebody hears it and resonates, or, someone like you has a client and says, hey, I really think you could also benefit from doing some of that deeper trauma healing, for example.
Yeah, I think, you know, as practitioners, we all have our own tools and our own areas
Mhm.
of expertise to get people to like where our lanes are, so to speak, right? Like
Yeah.
where is our skill set? What have we developed? What was given to us that we have uncovered and now have, dropped into? And I think it's such a beautiful thing that like we can get there in so many different ways. But I'm with you. I don't believe there's one person that's like the magic human that's going to unlock your all and it's going to be the everything you need. I think having many, many people, just like I believe in many tools in your toolkit. I mean, clearly I have not a million, but exaggeration, but a million different
Yeah.
ways and tools that I use that I put, oh, this one's from that, modality that I studied. This is from that. Oh, here's another modality that I use. And I don't work with anything I don't live. I don't, that I'm not living and studying and using in my own world because that just doesn't work for me. But I think, and then to find someone like you who does very similar things, and in different ways is such a
Mhm.
beautiful thing because it's like I'm a deep dive practitioner. It's rare for us to stay up at the top too very long. Well, we're gonna go to that route because it's like that's how we get rid of it. That's how we change it. That's how it evolves. That's how we transform. And so
Mhm.
and sometimes in that journey of the deep dive, it's like I'm here and there's this one little leg of this root that just is not letting go. And to be able to have practitioners and, trusted people who, can be like, hey, there's just this one spot. I feel like, hypnotherapy would be great for this, or I feel like the blend of somatic and hypnotherapy would be amazing. And just knowing that there's so many different ways, like I don't know, I'm flashing back to a monk chat I went to in Thailand, and he's like, there's lots of different ways to climb the mountain. You know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah.
all we're all going to the top of the mountain, but like there's a lot of different ways to get there. And I just remember him saying that. I'm like, well, not in the family that I grew up in, there wasn't. But I love that perspective, and I have that perspective now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think it's such a beautiful thing to know that it's like, well, if this particular trail isn't working for you right now, I think there's probably one that veers off just a little bit that way that might be useful to you. Let's explore that. And
Absolutely.
I think having so many practitioners in the world who are doing the healing work, finding those trauma points. And I found lately, I have a question that popped in earlier and it just popped back in. So apparently I'm supposed to
Hmm.
ask it. I'm wondering how you feel about, I'm finding that, we all have our own unique stories. And if you put a bunch of us in a room who are doing that deep work and we're in a community together where we're safe and it's a sacred space and we start really looking, I find that our pain points and are just they're not that different. And so somebody in the room can be talking about their very unique story and their very unique whole story with their pain points and everything involved. And people in the room who don't have a similar story at all very much resonates with the pain points and the skills and resources that they might use to get out of those pain points. And I find that such a fascinating and beneficial piece to doing work together as well.
Hmm.
Do you find
Yeah,
that to
I
be
do.
a similar experience where it's like, yeah, our stories are vastly different, but our pains as humans, they're not that
Hmm.
different. There's only so many
Oh,
different pain
absolutely.
points and so many different emotions that we can have that at some point it just leads you to one of them. And then it's like, okay, well now what?
Yeah, we can learn so much about how, yes, we're all so unique and different, and we have different experiences, different stories, and there's such a common thread.
Yeah.
I find that all the time. I have a group program called the Clarity Collective, and it's so uncanny. This happens all the time. It actually happens with my individual clients too, quite a bit. It's really interesting that people can really resonate. We talk about different topics of what's coming up for people, and they share their stories in my group program, and they're talking about what's present for them and what their struggles and challenges are. And there's always this shared experience of
Hmm.
people saying, yes, they experience that maybe in a slightly different way, but they can really relate. They can learn from each other, like what's working, and really take that and customize it for themselves.
Yeah.
It's really comforting, to know that you're not the only one that
That's
experiences this,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
it's
say it all the
healing.
time. I'm like, you're not alone. Look at us. We're sitting in a room. All of our stories are vastly and uniquely different, and they're
Yeah.
uniquely ours. But when you hear them all, isn't there a piece of you that goes, "Oh, I feel that."
Yeah.
That resonates. Somebody gets it. Somebody understands. And
Yeah,
to
that's
have
such a
that and to
benefit.
know that you're not alone is such a beautiful thing. And so I just want to flat out say thank you for the work you're doing. I can't wait. I have a feeling we're going to be connecting
I
more.
think so.
I do want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you if they want to. So could you just repeat? I want two things, your website and then your group name, because if that's, or however it's easiest for them to find those things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my website and the name that is on all the social media, so things like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, is Psyched Up Success. So psychedupsuccess.com, or
Okay.
you can find me on social media at Psyched Up Success as well. And then as far as my group goes, so on Facebook, I have a beautiful community called Purpose Passion Path. So it's literally just facebook.com/groups/purpose passion path. Really easy to find. And that's a great place as well because I share a lot of value, a lot of information in that community, and really do encourage building that community of people sharing exactly for that reason that you just brought up of those shared experiences that we have. Because even when I work with people individually, I'll talk to, 10, 15, 20 people in a week, and it's amazing how different each of them are, different ages, different backgrounds, different stories, different experiences. And there's always that common thread that we're always talking about the same thing. The wave's going in this direction this week, I find. And so in that community, bring those stories up and talk about those things. And it's a really safe space to do that in, and a very encouraging place to do that in because it's all growth minded individuals. And I think that that's really important to be in and find those spaces for yourself where you can be authentic and you can share and you can learn and you can grow. And so, yeah, I would encourage anyone to reach out to me if you want to explore options for support and doing this kind of work. I do offer on my website a free 30-minute consultation for anyone who's wanting to have a call and ask questions, as well as some great resources and downloads on there that they can find as well.
Beautiful. Well, I want to honor and respect your time. I feel like I have one last question to ask.
Okay.
If someone is wanting to try that whole sit and get calm thing, but they're a person
Mhm.
who has a really messy mind, do you have a recommendation of just like one place to start?
My favorite place to start is just a 1 minute exercise. It does not take very long. And what I recommend is just take 3 breaths. So literally just take 3 mindful breaths. And I want you to do is just imagine all that good air and oxygen moving into your body, nice and refreshing. Gather up any tension, any tightness, any stress, anything that you notice, and then release it. And I like a nice elongated exhale because that helps to release your nervous system as well. And so if you're a counter, it's up to you. If you want to quiet all the thoughts, 4, 7, and 8 breaths are great for that. So in for 4, nice and refreshing. Hold for 7, gather all the tension and tightness, out for 8. If you do that, you can only hold one thought at a time. So it
Yeah.
helps to be able to kind of just quiet that for just 3 breaths. And then I recommend at that point, just checking in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? What am I noticing or experiencing in my body? So, and again, it's how am I feeling in this moment? It's
Yeah.
not the way we try to attach our identity to emotions in our society, like I am happy, I am mad, I am anxious, right? It's in this moment. In this moment, I'm feeling this because again, it's meant to be felt and passed through, right? So in this moment, I'm feeling this. In this moment, I'm experiencing this in my body. Just check in with yourself. This will help you build that connection and build that skill. It's like building a muscle. And then just take 3 more of those breaths, release anything that feels like it needs to be released, and then give yourself whatever you need in that moment. If you feel like you're hungry now because you checked in with yourself and you stopped for 1 minute long enough to figure out you're hungry or thirsty or you want to stretch or take a walk or whatever it is, that will help you do a quick connection a quick release in your nervous system, but also just to build that little skill that strengthens with more reps. The more you practice, the easier it gets just to breathe and take a moment for yourself. And like I said, this does not have to take very long at all, but it's a really, really powerful exercise that anyone can do just starting out. And like I said, if counting bothers you or you decide you don't like that, don't count. Just air moving in, stress moving out. And that's okay too. So if you can do that, if you can take 3 breaths, you're doing it just fine. Just whatever way feels comfortable for you.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. Is there anything else you want to share or have to say?
You're very welcome. I'm so glad. Thank you for having me today. And I would just say that, don't feel like you have to do everything by yourself.
Oh, it's
Get
such
the
a good
support
reminder.
that you need and that you deserve. You're not selfish for doing that. You're not taking anything away from anyone else. You can, just like I was talking about with me, how important it was for me to make some of those shifts to be able to take care of myself first so I could show up as my best. That it applies to everyone. When you do those things to take care of yourself, then you can show up as your best for everyone and everything else in your life. And so reach out to practitioners like Michelle and I for the support. Just explore your options and figure out what's going to be the best fit for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that's a wrap for today. Bye. Be you every day.